Peace and light to the family. Welcome to another episode of Fresh Pharaoh Entertainment. We're your host. I'm Horace the Pharaoh.
And I'm Don the Ascended.
Your boy, Rod the guy, back after another banger.
Thank you
And
for
today we're doing a very sensitive but important topic, especially in this time, and that's mental health. And, you know, during this time, I think it's good to reiterate that, it's a lot of trauma out here, right? It's a lot of trauma. It was a lot of trauma prior to this. So now, this only builds on top of that trauma that's been building. And it has to be addressed and understood on a metaphysical as well as an occult level on how to deal with it in general, and not only in general, but specifically in this time where the trauma is targeted towards melanated individuals.
I feel as if what I feel as if now is a time where we should really focus on it because things are continuously piled on top of one another. And when things that happen to melanated people happen and we are forced to look at it, across all major sources of media, those type of things just get piled on top of one another. You know what I'm saying? Event after event after event, and we start to internalize those type of things. So it's like, okay, we watch one person get wrongfully done. We watch one
Mm-hmm.
person get killed, murdered. Then we watch another. Then we watch another, and another, and now, you know what I'm saying? Eventually, you go outside and your mind is just all out of whack because the only thing that you can think of is people that look like me just out here getting murdered. You know what I'm saying? And that's not good for you physically, mentally, spiritually, you know what I'm saying, emotionally in any level, because that affects your psyche in such a negative way.
It's trauma porn, right? It's And I think the media capitalizes on trauma porn, or not trauma porn, but showing melanated individuals getting killed because they know who the main people looking at it, melanated individuals. And so it also has to be noted that you know you attract things that you think about, right? So in the terms of mental health, like the trauma isn't just us being murdered. The trauma starts within your household. These generational curses, right? In a sense, like it's clear that mental health is real, but to look at the focal point of mental health, we have to look at the system of mental health and what it's built upon, right? So we have to acknowledge that mental health, the way they treat mental health, is based off the Europeans' psychology, physiology, right? When they came to Africa and they saw how the melanated individuals treated health, we treated it on the external as well as the internal, right? However, the European did not believe in the unseen. Therefore, their methods are only going to deal with the external and not understand the internal. And to further break this down, for example, take an instance that someone says they're bipolar or they're diagnosed with bipolar. They might not even be bipolar. They might be going through a spiritual transition. You dig? So it's a lot of misdiagnosing within this industry because everybody's mental is shaped is different. Genetically, our mental can be linked to our physical and our spiritual because we are spiritual beings. So the spiritual in that sense is more important than the external because the external is just a shell.
Yeah, I agree let me get my words right. I agree with that, to a certain extent because I feel like it's inevitable that there are certain misdiagnoses because when you're talking about things such as the mind, it's very hard to get, a concrete diagnosis for every person, because every person's mind is different. We all
Right.
have different mind, different, what I'm saying, psyches, different ways of thinking. However, I am quite sure that there's some people out there who just ain't got it all.
Right.
And sometimes the doctor just need, yeah, you go over and whatever you need to do to fix that, need you to do that. So I definitely wouldn't say that it's uh, a large scale of
Yeah.
people being misdiagnosed, but I do definitely agree that we need to take a step back and not be so quick to diagnose something, because that's what it seems like. Like, for example, you ever seen those memes where it's like somebody will look up online a certain
Right.
symptom they're having?
Mm-hmm.
It'll be like, dang, bro, you know what I'm saying? My stomach is hurting. And then I'll look it up online and it'll be like, yeah, you have cancer. And it'll be like, what? I feel like it's one of those things, because
Right.
you could, just be having a bad day. Or like you said, you could
Sure.
be going through a spiritual transition, something that you have no idea what is happening. You could be going through that, and a doctor could just say, you know what, this is what it looks like. This
Right.
is, what I think this is, because I've seen something similar to it. Maybe not exactly, but I've seen something similar to it. And, you know, I don't know how exactly they diagnose, but from my own perspective, I do feel like sometimes things can be it's close enough. So, we'll diagnose you with this.
Right.
And that's not always the best case. I mean, sometimes it can help somebody out, but I feel like,
Right.
other times somebody could be missing their entire transition, and or whatever the purpose of that stage of life may be, because they think that they're under some condition that they're not.
And I think another important thing is to look at how mental health is introduced, because mental health, if anyone, it affects our generation the most. And I mean, this is in the number of people that are truly affected by mental health and the amount that believe mental health. It's an issue globally in our generation across all races. And you have to look about how it's introduced, right? For example, we're taught about mental health in, like, we learn about it in middle school. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like, they started talking about it in middle school,
It's like a
and
life.
we're pretty much like turned out by the system like immediately, because they like, yo, let's tell these kids they got depression off rip, because that to them is a profit. It's no different than the pharmaceutical industry. You dig? So those that might actually have these things are not, because to me, you're taking you're giving drugs to help you live with the disorder
Mm-hmm.
instead of to get rid of the disorder, right? It's helping you cope with it and become symbiotic with it. But if it's an illness, you want to get rid of it. So that's what the system is based upon. The drugs are essentially worse than the illness, because then people
Uh-huh.
be ODing off the drug. So then you have to ask, well, what is really at hand? And you see this the most in our music, especially like our current music. It's like artists such as Juice World who would put, and this is why I feel like our age group is crying out for help, because our biggest artists are the ones who are the most emotionally traumatized, such as Juice World and XXX, who both have passed, but you can still hear in their music the amount of pain, and the fact that those songs chart so high and it's resonating with people when they vocalizing those feelings shows that, okay, well, for this song to be that big and it's talking about this content means there's clearly an issue. That's the form of crying out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I with your first point, with the drugs and the pharmaceuticals, I completely agree. I feel as if, a lot of people say that they need the meds, and I understand that there are people out there who need those
Right.
medications in order to function throughout their everyday life. But I also understand that the way the medical system is built, we are not offered cures, we are offered treatments.
Facts.
And those are two different things. You know what I'm saying? A cure will get rid of it. A cure will ensure that you don't have to come back to the doctor. But if you don't have to come back to the doctor, if you don't need that prescription refilled, you know what I'm saying, then that profit is lost. And that's the biggest thing when we look at the industry as a whole. You know, sometimes I talk to people about the medical industry and they may have a relative who's a nurse or a doctor, and they'll say, well, they wouldn't do that, this, that, and the third. But that's an individual. You have to look at the industry as a whole. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Who runs the corporations? Who really is getting the money? And it's not completely ridiculous for someone to say, you know what? Let's not teach them how to better themselves mentally. Let's not teach them the techniques and the methods that they can use in order to bring themselves out of this mental rut that they may be in.
Right.
And I say that because all too often we are taught that the solutions and answers we need are external.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody really tells us that what you're going through mentally, it may not seem like it, but you are the only one that can bring you out of that. There's no outside person that's going to tell you the right words. You know what I'm saying? Somebody might make it feel better, but to
Mm-hmm.
actually go to the root of the problem and solve it, that requires your own soul searching. That
Mm-hmm.
requires your own mental processes. That does not require you to go out and just take whatever pills are given to you. They may help you feel better, but that's for the time being. And you
Right.
can see that because the fact that you have to keep taking the pills,
Mm-hmm.
that's telling you right there that it's a temporary solution.
Right.
T- Temporary solutions are just going to remain temporary, which means that your problem will be permanent.
Facts.
But then,
And so, yeah,
And keep going.
you know,
yeah,
I don't, and like I said, you know, these conversations are already always a bit of a slippery slope
Right.
because I know that there are people that are going through things, and
Right.
I know people don't like to hear whatever you're going through, you can fix it. You know what I'm saying? You have the power to fix it. You have the power to
Right.
overcome it. People don't like to hear that because it's like just let them go through whatever they're going through. But I don't feel as if the coping mechanisms that we are given nowadays are the healthiest.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's no telling what people be putting in them pills, man. It's no telling. You know what I'm saying? Um, you remember the song Substance Abuse off
Mm-hmm.
of Bill B's album Ether. He was like,
Facts.
you know, the side effects got side effects, as if the kids ain't already depressed enough. And that's
Right.
true, bro. You ever watch the pharmaceutical commercial? Well,
And they
they're
speed through them side effects. They be
right,
like death, nausea, depression, death,
side
death,
effects
death,
are
and they
worse
just
than
keep
the
going.
algorithm.
right. And it's like,
You
bro,
can't suffer asthma.
I just right. I just tell you, so I'm just trying to breathe right. You know, I just got a little lower back pain, and you telling me I could lose sight in my left eye, lose hearing in my right ear, like, and so these side effects, it's like there has to be a better way to solve our problems. There has to be a better way, and I feel like the better ways aren't taught to us. I feel like we are taught to absorb these issues. We are taught to, you know what I'm saying, internalize what we are given and then search externally for
Mm-hmm.
the solution. But why search externally for the solution when internally that's where the problem is? You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
And
And go ahead.
I was about to say, even looking at it metaphysically, right? Because again, what you said, we're not saying that these people aren't struggling with it, but we're saying the coping mechanisms aren't sufficient enough to help you get through your issue as going within, right? It's even stated like the properties of divine femininity and divine masculine, right? The masculine and this and don't and before I break it down in case you don't know, every individual has the divine passion, masculine and feminine in them, but you have to know when to use it and when they're in tune and balanced. So the masculine element is essentially the one that you use to rise up, right, above emotion, right. It's the one that helps you become God, and the feminine helps you tap into the emotion, right. So to put those two in perspective, You use your masculine in situations such as mental health. So you can rise above the emotion once you have acknowledged the emotion within the feminine. And you use this to elevate, which is pretty much me just saying you must go within and learn thyself. And a lot of people, they say, well, it's not that simple. And I agree, it's not that simple. However, if you have an excuse for it, that proves that you're not ready to put in the work. And that's not to down people, but I know plenty of people who would say they have this issue or that issue. And when I talk to them, I tell them, well, you should do X, Y, and Z. They're like, I don't want to do that. Instead, they like to hear you sympathize with their grief or their pain. And I feel like that's not a healthy coping mechanism, because what that does is fuel the ego that's saying, yes, be sad, be this, be that. And it is okay to feel those emotions. You need to in order to overcome it, right? When you're mad at something, you get mad and then you overcome the anger and you come over with realization. You dig? So you must embrace the feelings that's given to you, do the mental abuse and the mental issues, and then overcome it yourself. I think the problem is we keep looking for handouts
You
for
know, I
solutions.
I feel like it's even more steps to that because I feel like before you can even embrace it, you have to be able to identify what exactly the emotion is. And I say that because a lot of the times we act out of emotion without even realizing how we feel ourselves. You
Right.
know, you ever walk up to a person and say, "How are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
And the default answer, "I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm
Fine.
good, I'm
Okay.
chilling." You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? Exactly. But if you sit there and you pause for a second, you say, no, like, how are you actually doing right now? You know what I'm saying? Think about the events that have happened throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
How has all of that built up to your current emotional state? And, people will not be able to answer that question. But I don't know any other emotions besides happy, sad, angry,
Right.
chill, tired. You feel what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's, when I was doing the summer camp that I was working at, this past summer, they have what's called a mood meter, and pretty much it's a meter that ranges from low pleasantness to high pleasantness and low energy to high energy, and they have multiple emotions across the chart depending on what quadrant you are in, and they actually mandated it to where the students and the teachers before every day they would have to identify what emotion they were currently in, what emotional state they were currently in before they begun the day. That way they can know how to best handle any situations that would arise as you go through the day. And this can be seen, like, this can be used across the board for everyone, because imagine if something were to happen that day, and let's say a kid starts acting out and the teacher knows, well, this kid didn't have the best morning. So I already know that he's irritated. I already know that he's not in the best mood. So now instead of being upset with him, now I can say, okay, you know what? I know you're not in the best mood. How can I best help you? And this could even help adults, because we see adults all the time who are so reactive. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? Somebody will say one slick thing to them and they ready to pop off. But it's like,
And I don't mean to cut you off, but
Right there.
what that says is that, and I've heard this in a song before. I heard this in the B.O.B. song as well. That we have we have parents that grow with issues that raise children with those issues, and so the problem is generational in a sense. If you do not deal with your shit, your trauma, right? Because your parents are passing down their trauma to you, right? It's not even it's I'm not gonna say it's intentional, but when a mother brings life into this world, that's essentially them bringing their ego. In a sense, they're bringing an entity in here. So your trauma is being passed down through that lifeline as well. And if your parents haven't worked out that trauma, more than likely you will have experienced some trauma, some shape, way, or form, right? That's why I say you can't compare trauma, because in order to learn thyself and raise Kundalini, You need to understand your trauma and deal with your trauma how you need to in order to help you elevate oneself. You know, when people, I think people trying to compare traumas to one another is just, again, ego. Because it's like, well, my trauma did this to me. And he's like, well, my trauma did this to me. Where that don't matter because it's your trauma. So you have to deal with your trauma in order to heal yourself, right? Because the
Mhm.
power of the mind is truly limitless. And and I think we know this because we're told this all the time. And it's funny because people love to talk about the power of words and don't realize the magic that they're using and how it's hurting them every day. They say, well, I have depression. And you just manifesting more and more depression. If you're depressed, you want to say, I don't have no depression. I have no depression. And you want to keep emphasizing that to make it a reality. You dig?
And
You
I'm ready.
control your reality.
that's very true. I just feel like some people, they look at that as a way, they think it's not possible. They think, well, how can I just say this and it works? I feel like saying it is just part of the solution. You also have to find out what specifically for you
Right.
is a way for you to cope with whatever you're going through and cope in a healthy way. I'm not saying that you should just be out here, indulging in whatever drugs or, whatever unhealthy habits that you want to indulge in. If that's what you do, that's cool. But if that's what you're doing in order to escape your emotions, then eventually you're going to get to a point where that's no longer, sufficient.
Right.
And that's when we start to see people doing too much with that. I feel like that's a dead end road. I
Hmm.
feel like the only way to solution, especially when it comes to mental health, is the hard road, is the road that says you have to identify what the issue is. And then once you identify that issue, you have to be able to accept the fact that you feel this way. You
Hmm.
have to accept that this is how you feel. I know a lot of the times, especially as men, we are so afraid of our emotions that we will deny them on end, and
Hmm.
that does not help us in any way. You know what
And
I mean?
we see it all the time, especially in high school.
Generation.
It's like, what are you saying?
I was saying how I feel like our generation is more inclined to talk about those emotions, but still it's not in a good way. It's not like to a fair level yet. Because the generation before us, I feel like they are prone to keep everything bottled up on the inside and just live it, just take with it. Meanwhile, as time goes on, we are like as compared to like our fathers and forefathers, I feel like we're a little more inclined to talk about these type of conversations, but it's still not the point where I'm just comfortable with be like, oh hey, I'm feeling this, this, and this, and this, and this, and I need to do this, this, and this. I still feel like we're kind of
Yeah.
on that
We're
verge
we're
where I
definitely more inclined to speak that. I agree with that all the way. But the barrier is the same with every generation in the aspect of emotion. For men, comes in accessing divine femininity. They think when someone hears divine feminine or divine femininity, they just think girly, or they don't think that they think that they're just pure masculine and there's no balance of energies, which in divine feminine deals with you accepting emotion, right? And this is why, when you go back to ancient Comedian culture, this is why the woman was seen as the wise, right? This is why the woman was the head of the household. And what was it, a matriarch? Yeah, matriarchy,
Yeah,
because
matriarchy.
the woman was wise, and not saying she was better than the man, but due to her having the innate femininity, she knew how to control the emotions and be like, no, you're feeling this way. That's why the wigs that the men wear that were given to the men once they achieve divine femininity, because that's when they said, okay, you two are both in tune with your two halves. Now you are one, right? This is why in statues it's usually the woman with their arm around the man. Like, I got you. I'm giving you this energy. You use it so you can. I'm gonna give you this emotion so you know how to run. So you know how to take care and provide for the family. And even bringing that to mental health with men, it's definitely becoming more vocal. We're definitely speaking more, but it's still not always in the healthiest ways. You know, I've seen dudes who would be like mean face mugged all day. Hey man, what's wrong? Nothing. Dude, you in a corner in the classroom. You know what I mean? And I know because I've been the dude before. You know, you
Who
sitting there,
you
man, you pissed
telling?
off.
Always,
You
always
pissed
two
off, bro. You sitting
extremes.
like this all day. You at the lunch table by yourself. Hey man, what's wrong with you? Nothing, bro. Don't bother me. Okay.
It's all, it's always two extremes. It's like either on one side you got those that wear all the emotion on their sleeve, like you can just tell whatever emotion they feeling, they act in it. Like if they're angry, you'll feel it. They're gonna have the face, the tone, the everything. And
Right.
you
And
got
what'd you say? You said we can feel it, right? Because it's an energy.
admitting that. Meanwhile, other those keep like that straight mask on, like flat, like that poker face. Like they could be in the worst shape in the world or happiest in their life right now. They just keep that straight face, keep bottled up on the inside. They're not trying to
That's
reveal
so
whatever is
unhealthy,
inside
bro.
the bugging.
That is so
It's
unhealthy because
either
I feel exactly, and I feel like men so often we are taught that being sensitive is a bad thing, and it's the connotation, especially in today's society, of sensitivity. And it's so negative when it comes to men. It's like men shouldn't be in tune with their emotions. Whatever emotion they should have, they should suppress it because that's what men do, quote unquote, is suppress their emotions. You know what I'm saying? Men don't get sad. Men don't do this. Men don't do that when it comes to emotions. So now you put this fallacy of an expectation on a man, on a boy first. You put on a boy first, then he grows into a man that thinks, you know what? I'm with my girl right now, and she says something that I don't like. You know what I'm saying? It hurt my feelings, but I'm not going to address that with her because I don't want to seem sensitive to her.
Right.
Next thing you know, she keeps doing it, but because you haven't addressed the issue, now she's not even aware that it's making you feel some type of way. And so, like with anything, you keep piling things on, eventually it's going to explode. And so now y'all get into an argument and you say something and she's just like, why are you just now saying something? Why
Right.
didn't you say this the first time it made you feel some type of way? Now you looking stupid because you can't just say, well, I ain't want to seem sensitive. Now you look stupid because you could have just said what was on your mind. And so, and that's just in a relationship with your girl, with your queen.
Right.
It's so many other things. Like, let's say you could be at the job, your boss does something that's pissing you off. You know what I'm saying? Time after time, you never address it. Next thing you know, you pop off. Now you fired. You don't lost your job.
You pop up at a customer, you throw
All
his
right,
milk on the floor, and you're like, bro, what? Why? And you sitting there like, and the boss sitting there over there.
right. Go
You're out.
ahead, clock out for me.
And I'm glad you said what you said about the relationships, because that brings me to a very important thing going on and a book. Let me go pull this book out real quick, too. Hold on. So, I found this book in middle school called Behold a Pale Horse, right? And it's written by ex-CIA agent William Cooper, who was found killed after he wrote the book, of course. But in this book, he talks about subliminal warfare, right? Which is subconscious mind, the war on the mind, because that's what the war is all about. And looking at everything that's going on subliminally, right? What you said about the man and the woman. This, what you had about the emotions and the feelings specifically relates to melanated individuals, right? Because in this book, he talks about how the government wants to seek control of the Black household by breaking it up, right? And it goes as deep as to even the implementations of technology is in subliminal warfare. For example, how the TV being brought in after the man gets home tired and everyone's at the TV paying him no mind after he has had a long day at work and is tired, right? It goes as deep as to explain how this will eventually lead to the fights and arguments that address other subliminal issues that were hidden that were suppressed through everything in order to break up the household. At its deepest to go into, this will lead into higher incarceration rates of melanated men, right? So it is a woman with just children in the household in order to have the European entangle with the melanated woman and leave the melanated individual out of the race, all through the mind, just playing with your subconscious and your psyche, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
people hear that stuff and go, what? But it's, first of all, it's in the book, okay? And two, it's not far-fetched because we know they play mind games all the time. What's going on currently is a mind game. You know, back on our coronavirus episode, which y'all should listen to, because I think everything that's going on, we predicted, because, you know, we pharaohs. And so we talked about everything that's going on with the fear mongering back in February. And if you're a day one listener, we support you for that, because you were with us when we spoke about the fear mongering and the war on the mind, right? How this COVID was going to be the war on the mind. For
Mm-hmm.
example, my take is, think of it like this. If the coronavirus is a dangerous, dangerous virus, why you need to get tested to know that you got it, right? If you got, if you you know what I'm saying, like, if you have such a bad disease, you know you're not feeling good, you know you're feeling terrible, right?
You
That's
know
like you
you
wake
got
up
this.
throwing up blood. You like, oh, I got something. You don't be like, hey, I don't know, I think I'm fine. So you don't just get, you see what I'm saying? It's a war on the mind and the psyche. And it goes as deep, because even looking at this Black Lives Matter movement, it's a war on the psyche, your mental health, because they are showing you your black ass murked, because they like, let's give them this. And I'm tired of turning on the TV seeing black trauma porn. I'm tired of seeing
Mm-hmm.
this that only show the lower levels of ourself instead of this, right? And
No,
They're trying to break you.
it's insane because just looking at it from a social standpoint, you got these kids who, you know what I'm saying, 5, 6, 7 years old, and we literally live in a time where you can watch somebody get killed on national TV because that's literally what happened. They put a murder, an assassination on live national TV. And so you have millions of young eyes watching that. And now forever implanted into their subconscious, you know what I'm saying? I am not worth living. You know what I'm saying? People that look like me, it must be something wrong with us because people don't just get killed like that. You know
right,
what I'm saying? For out of nowhere. So now you have these kids who, and that could have, you know, repercussions throughout their entire life. It could range in severity depending on each child. You can have some children who take it and they act out because
right,
now they're like, well, shit, if you know, if I could die at any minute from somebody who don't look like me, I might as well just live it up while I got it now. Or you have some kids who internalize it and for the rest of their life they gonna have what's the word I'm looking for? Self,
PTSD. Oh,
yeah, PTSD, that's one of them. Oh my God, what is the word I'm looking for? It's the definition of how much you love yourself.
Pride?
It's self.
narcissism.
No, it's the good one. The oh my goodness, I cannot think of the
Confidence?
confidence. Yeah, it's yo. I'm actually drawing a blank right now. Anyways, you just
Same.
have self-esteem. That's what I'm looking for. You have
Ah,
kids who grow up with extremely low self-esteem because
mm-hmm,
as a child they were shown that their life is less than, and
Hmm.
nobody has to explicitly say that. When you watch somebody that looks like you get killed on national TV, I mean, that's one of the only messages you can take from it, because you don't just see that happen on national TV. You feel what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And so that's when, when I say this mental health thing, it runs much deeper
Right.
than, the overall generalized statements. We have children, we have young adults, we have adults who are being affected in ways that they don't even understand until it's too late.
And
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 How do you explain to? What's that?
what you say? What you
I
say,
always gotta
Ryan?
ask. How do you
Ask a question.
explain? How do you explain to a 4 or 5 year old child like that early? Like why is he sitting on his neck? Like how do you have that conversation so young in life? Like why didn't he let him breathe when they ask these questions? Like
Well, I think one, when we look at how they're playing the mind games right now, this is where you have to understand how the mind works, right? Danger is real, but fear is just an illusion, right? Fear is just your reaction to something. The danger of something can be real. You can be face to face with a lion and be calm, right? But your fear is a reaction. And so the mental games they play is to get a reaction out of you. Because when they get a reaction out of you, that means you are emotional. And once you're emotional about something, means you are now they can control you and pull you any which way because they got you at your heartstrings, they got you at your heart chakra. That means they can throw you this way, that way, throw you for a loop, up. They do the whoa with your ass. They got you everywhere because you they got you emotionally. And that's why you have to understand you can look at something a bit angry, but before you react, take it in self and look at what they're doing, because there are plenty mind games that I can unravel for days about how they mess with our psyche in order to control you. For example, the term white supremacy is nothing but a mental mind game. You're calling if you're calling the white man supreme. It's in the word white supremacy. You're calling them supreme, but if you don't believe them to be supreme, why are you using the word? You just said words have power. You're contradicting yourself and using your magic against you.
mm-hmm.
yeah, man,
Yeah,
it's insane because oh my God, I just forgot what I was about to say.
I call it post-traumatic slave syndrome.
Wow. Man,
lost
man.
it.
I'm glad you said that, because when we look at the things that are going on now, it's like people want so bad for them to not be the solution to their own problems. And I say that because we are always looking for, you know what, let's go to them for the solution, or let's go to them for the solution. But
Mm-hmm.
we have to realize that we have our own power. You know what I'm saying? We have the power to create the situation in which we want to live in. And it's not no more that, a, the, you ever I think about it like this. I think about it like this. When you have a barking dog, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the dog is in the cage, right? The dog wants to get out of the cage. And so you're like, you know what? I want this dog to stop barking. I'm gonna throw him a bone.
Mm-hmm.
Dog stops barking. The dog is still in the cage. I feel like they do that with us. I
Precisely.
feel I feel like when we are upset and when we are demanding these things, I feel like they'll throw any little thing in our face to say, look, here, we'll give you this so you can shut up. But we don't want you to realize that you're still in the same situation you were in before we gave you
Facts.
this. They want you to miss the big picture. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so there'll be some little thing like, oh, what I'm saying, we arrested the cops who did that, and oh, um, you know, we see what y'all are talking about. We'll change this one law, these two laws. Like, that's cool and all. I feel like that'll contribute to the overall process. But we are looking at the bigger picture. You know what I'm saying? We want things that are going to change our course of you know what I'm saying, of everything for our people as a whole. We want things to change now in the present, so that way things in the future can be forever different.
Mhm.
And so I feel like that happens so much, and I correlate this to the slave mindset because a lot of the times the slaves didn't even realize the position they were in because they had been in it for so long.
Facts.
And so, you literally have slaves who weren't even trying to escape, or slaves who had become complacent
Hmm.
in what the situation they were in. And not to knock them or anything, because I never, what I'm saying, disrespect my ancestors. But when you are born into a situation and you know no different, then you literally grow up not even knowing that there's more out there for you.
Facts.
And so you could have a slave who's been a slave their entire life. And they're like, man, I ain't really feeling this. This food not the best. And so the master says, you know what? I'll give you some better food. And you go out there, you eat that food, and you go right back on them fields and keep working.
Right.
And so
Subliminal
you don't got
warfare.
exactly, you don't got what you asked for, but you still a slave.
And I think a great example of this is how they play mind games with your food, right? People forget the food mind control too. Think about it like this: a place like, let's say, Ben and Jerry's, the ice cream place. People was going to quickly start supporting them if they said they didn't support Black Lives Matter. However, Chick-fil-A been telling y'all since the beginning of when they was made, we are conservative. And Chick-fil-A has the balls to say it because they know that's not going to sway you. They know saying we are racist, we don't care about you, ain't going to stop you from going in there and buying that chicken. Why? Because they got your mind wrapped around this food so hard that you will kill your own people or destroy your own people for some chicken, and you don't even realize you're doing it. How can one company that says, "But we aren't racist," and you're like, yeah, y'all better not be, and another company said we racist and you still support it? That defeats the whole purpose of this Black Lives Matter movement that was falsified from the jump. If you gonna run with it to the extreme. I seen people stop supporting black businesses in the past 2 weeks like crazy. I was like, some people didn't even support it when they were saying it. You know what I'm saying? And the mental game is that shouldn't even be a topic. You know what I'm saying? We should not have to tell each other to support black business. Why is that even a
Hmm.
discussion? Why is that not behavior?
I feel like a lot of the time support can be so fickle. It can be so conditional. We'll support you if you do this, or we'll support you while we feel like it. You know what I'm saying? Until I don't feel like it anymore, then it's whatever. All the other stuff I said in the past, you can forget about it. And that is so detrimental to our overall process because now we get into this state of being in which things are only starting to get okay for a little while. And then we regress more than we ever progressed.
Right.
It's like the saying, two steps forward, three steps back.
Right.
And so we're constantly, oh, wow, we actually starting to come together a little bit. That's what's up. And then we'll get a situation where something will happen and it's like, okay, black people, really? And this what we doing to our own people now? It's like, what happened to, we for our people? What happened to we gonna do this and we gonna do that? This, that, and the third. And now we back to a point, what I'm saying? We further back from square one.
Right.
And so we have to get to the point where we say we're gonna do something, then we're gonna do it, we're gonna execute it to the fullest. Because
Right.
I don't think that we could ever have a society in which every black mind is completely healthy and completely free from all this past trauma until we get to a position in which we can ensure that this type of trauma does not happen any longer. I feel
Right.
like the main reason why these things are so traumatic is because we know that it could happen again at any second.
Right.
Somebody could get attacked by a shark and they know, well, hey, uh, that's traumatic, but if I don't go back in the ocean, I'll be straight.
Right.
Or somebody could, what I'm saying, survive a plane crash. That's traumatic. They're like, you know what? If I don't get on another plane ever again, I'll be straight. Now, black person, oh wow, it's traumatic. I just watched my brother get murdered, and it don't matter where you go, that can happen to you at any moment with no warning. I feel like that's the reason why it's so traumatic, because it's not only did you watch that happen, not only does that person look exactly like you, but you understand that this world that you live in, you could be outside minding your business,
Mhm.
not bothering anybody, and lose your life. And this
But
could happen at any moment.
but with that, see, again, let's go back to mentally, right? This is when the power of the mind and your words have power and manifestations come at the play. Yes, it can happen, but if you, again, if anything you think about, you say, manifest itself. I promise you, I ain't never been pulled over by a cop in my life, and I doubt I ever will. I've never attracted that energy towards me. I've never even had the thought of getting pulled over. I had a friend who said, "Man, I had a cop behind me today. I was so scared. He got to pull me over." He said, "The dude followed me almost till I got home." I was like, "Yeah, because you thought about him the whole way." I see a cop behind me, I speed up. I have no fear of you because I know he fears me. You dig? They do
But
this
we,
because that's the reaction of fear. Your mind is a tool. You have to use the tool between your two shoulders, bro. Go ahead.
but that's you know what I'm saying, because we live in a society where that fear, that image of being afraid of those who quote unquote oppress us, um, that image, that fear is pushed onto us so often.
Right.
And so for a lot of people, for most people, actually, they don't know how to properly utilize their mind. They don't know how to properly tap into their mind's power. And a lot of our minds are easily influenced by the images that we see. And so when these images are put onto us, then the response, the natural response from it, is what they're going to run with. And so I think society as a whole, we have to come to a point where it's almost like we want, progress in certain areas, but for that to happen, we need progress in other areas. You know what I mean? And so it's like it's
Right.
all intertwined, because, we want better mental health for ourselves. And we know that in order to get better mental health, we gotta live in a system that isn't doing us wrong every, every turn. Then it's like, okay, well, for us to do that, for us to fight for a better system, we gotta have people that's thinking straight. We can't have that. Why everybody, you know what I mean?
And
And so,
I was gonna say
go
because
ahead.
I've had some. I had a. Well, I'm not gonna say I had an encounter, but I heard an encounter at my job at the grocery store about 2 weeks ago. Like I said, I don't attract that energy, but lady came in the line and she was coming down my line to get bad, but then she went to the next line, and I knew it was for a reason. So as she goes down the line, lady just starts ranting to the bagger, and she's like, "When you see a cop, don't you do nothing, boy. Put your hands up." And she looked at me like she about to say something. I looked at her like, I don't operate on that. She ain't even look at me. She turned back quick. And the fact that she was putting that fear and that energy causing the scene. And I'm sitting there like, whoa. So it's not just us, because now the adults are putting that image onto us even harder. You need to do this when you see a cop. You need to do that. That's post-traumatic slave syndrome right there. They talking to him. Why is it that when black parents talk to their children about a police, they talk to the police as if he the master, right? That is ridiculous.
I feel like the the intention of that is to make sure that we are protecting ourselves, should we ever come into an encounter with them. But I think what they don't realize is that they are putting a fear-based reaction, regardless of what will happen, into us, from the get-go. And I feel like it's not just them. We see the fear-based reaction, from all forms of media. And so now it becomes less of a, you know what, do this to protect yourself, but that does not mean that you need to be fearful. And I feel like those are two different things because you can protect yourself without being fearful of
Right.
the outcome of the situation. I feel like with social media, national media, and even people around us, personal accounts, I feel like it's so easy for them to instill fear into us, but that's not really helpful when you're talking about protecting yourself. Because if you're trying to protect yourself and you're only being driven by fear, especially fear that you do not know how to control, then that's what can put you into an even worse situation because you could just react. You know what I'm saying? And we already know that we don't live in a world where just reacting will ensure that you come home safely. And so I feel like if you're a parent and you're trying to teach these lessons, you have to make sure that you understand the difference between someone protecting themselves and someone just being afraid of someone.
They try to what was it called? It's called when they instill that fear into your young. It's called like the elephant to a stake syndrome. Because like I believe the story went how how a baby elephant. Let's say you can tie a baby elephant to a stake, right? And let's say at that time it's not strong enough to free itself because it's a baby. It's not strong enough to free itself from a chain yet, right? So it stayed to that stake. And as the elephant grows up, he realizes by the time he's an adult elephant, adult elephant is the strongest animal on earth. They can easily just rip that chain right off the ground, right? It was broken early, so it just gives up trying to break that chain because
Right.
early it already gave up on it. Like I say, meanwhile, it doesn't realize how strong it has gotten since then. You know what I'm saying?
And that plays perfectly into the stigma that, as I said earlier, dangers is real, but the fear is the illusion. However, what we're told is dangerous ain't even dangerous. We're told that danger is the white man. Danger isn't the white man. Danger is what you believe his power to be over you. That's the danger. The danger is what you giving him power. You're saying, oh, yo, he's a white supremacist. So you're saying again, he is supreme. So the power you believe he has over you is what's dangerous, because that is the power of your mind creating a reality. You control your reality. So if that's your reality, that's what you will live in, right? The power of the mind is beyond comprehensible. Even though we know so much, the subconscious has layers like an onion. You dig? You can always peel back. And it's funny because like what they do with this stuff is they can show you something, as you said, Don, that looks like progress, and it's not even progress. I seen a thing today that sparked my interest where it said Asheville in North Carolina was said they voted saying they were going to give reparations to the black people in the country. I seen it on the in their city, and I was like, that's interesting. So I looked it up, of course, did some research. So in the city of Asheville, 83% of the population is white and 12% is black, and the rest is whatever. But when you read what this voting of reparations consists of, it don't consist of no money. It don't consist of no 40 acres and a mule. This junk literally says policy reform as the reparation. Policy reform. But they just told you it was reparations and they got you to shut up. But if you take the time to look at it, it don't tell you. So in the deep, if you want to go even deeper, what that is just saying is that say that you're black, therefore you cannot claim no indigenous or sovereign status to claim your nationality. Because I was talking to Dwayne Hendricks earlier. As soon as I found this out, I hit him up and was like, "Yo, what you think about this?" He was like, "They trying to make sure your nationality, they making sure you can't claim it." And it's funny because Dr. Phil Valentine spoke on this as well. He said if you don't get your nationality by this election and you claim this black on a piece of paper after you vote, he says this is pretty much game over for you because now they know. Now you can't even hide it now because they have you under wrap. And that's how deep the game goes on the mental and how easily they are to persuade you. And people look at me and say, yeah. But I tell people if it wasn't true, why would people be able to do it? Right? I tell people if it goes back to the whole thing with the police even being able to kill black people and the stocks benefiting and the police departments gaining money off of it, off of black death, right? Telling you that black is not a legal thing, but they told you was black. So now you say I am black and it's not even nationality. Mental, mind games, subliminal warfare. That's been going on since Reconstruction. What did Reconstruction really do? It tore it back down. It made it worse, right? If you read documents from the era of Reconstruction versus what we were told Reconstruction was supposed to be in the textbooks, it's not even close. All that did, the 14th Amendment told you you were now property of you went from property of a slave master to property of the government.
And all
That's
that
control.
13th Amendment did was tell you that slavery, we're going to take it outside. We're just going to put it inside.
Facts. They say y'all
four
want to be
walls
part
of a prison.
Right.
You keep all you part of us then.
And that's what upsets me because I try to tell people that the games in the mind are deeper than anything they can do to you physically out here because I've told people this battle we're fighting right now is not external. It's spiritual. That's why they can't touch us right now, bro. They can't touch you unless you go out there. I heard from another lecturer, shout out to Brother Panic, who broke it down. He said if there are levels to this, the melanated individual can take it to a level of 7, and the white man takes it to a level of 3. That's as far as they can go spiritually. Therefore, they need you to bring it down to a 3 so they can be a master at it at 3. And you are like, okay, this is the bar, but not knowing that you creating it was on some guy shit, right?
Mm-hmm. Dang, that's actually a crazy analogy.
And the lecture was about hip hop. And matter of fact, I'm gonna talk about this just in the form of mind control because I think it's very interesting and should be very noted. He said when hip hop was created, hip hop was specific to us, that no one understood it but us. It was for us when it came out, when African Bambaataa, Zulu Nation, DJ Scratch, Cool Herc, all these grandmasters was going nuts, creating something new that no one ever sounded. The white man didn't know what it was. However, now we fast forward to the late 90s, and actually all time. Why is something that melanated individuals created? And when you look at hip hop, I looked up the highest first week sales of any album at all time. This Eminem. That defeats the purpose of it being yours. The first week sales, I think he had almost 2 million sales first week with the Marshall Mathers LP. And I think number 2 was 50 Cent with like 1.5 million. And 3 was like the Carter 3 with like 900,000 or like 1 million. But the point is, the fact that the white, and again, he said they brought it down to a level to where they can dominate it because they know at this point you cannot bring it back up to that level. They've made you bring it down to the point where it's just like this so they can now compete with you on this level because they knew, all right, we got them here. They're going to keep it here because right now they see our face until they create something new and tap into the God realm and bring it down. So we don't know how to do it. Because there was at one point where there was no such thing as white rappers. Because they weren't, because they didn't understand the process. They just knew the Jews and the Zionists who control the labels just knew, hey, just make money. Put them up there more until they found someone that could infiltrate and do the same thing. And the same thing goes on with everything, right? All in your mental. The same way they're forcing the European into the households now, right? It's all mind games. It's subliminal warfare. What's the phrase? Silent weapons,
Silent
quiet
wars.
war, something like that.
Silent wars and quiet weapons.
I always get that backwards, man. I swear, always. But it's the battle. It's the battle, and to understand that the things unseen is what you need to focus on, right? It's like how right now what's trending on Instagram is everything regarding Will Smith and Jada Pickett and Jada and their relationship and the entanglement. Why does that even matter? It shouldn't even matter to you. That does not apply to you. What should matter is everything that's happened under the rug that's just been breezing by while you've been doing it. No one is talking about the death of the dollar in the fiat coin. No one is talking about Wayfair and how their site that was selling these $15,000 pillows, they weren't selling pillows, they were selling kids. The pillows were named like at the kid, like this is the John Wayne Kushner fabric pillow, 15K. People were buying it and it was kids. But we too busy worried about something that does not apply. That's why I tell people they throw a distraction in front of you so you can be bound with that while everything else that's coming out is coming under the rug. They're playing with the magic of the 2024 year because they know what's happening right now. They know that we're in a time of Aquarius. Stuff is coming out and coming to light. So since everything coming to light, let's make a big deal out of something that does not matter while all this other stuff that's popping up, we can just breeze over. Bringing it back to the death of the fiat dollar. If you notice, there are places, even my job, that are not taking cash right now because they say there is a shortage of cash. First of all, that don't make sense. Money is made of paper. There's a tree outside. It's 50,000. What you talking about? So for them to be a shortage of $1, it don't even make sense. So again, it's way bigger issues going under the rug, but they're gonna play with your mental to make you look at something that does not matter, to breeze it under until you realize. But once you realize, it's too late because what they did is done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I feel like at the very least, you ain't even gotta be on no conspiracy stuff, no none of that. I feel like if you are going through something mentally, the 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 least you could do for yourself is at least focus on you. You know what I mean? It's so much out there that could be distracting you from obtaining true progress, true mental peace for yourself. And don't get yourself caught up in all that nonsense when you could be doing, work that actually works for you.
Right.
At the end of the day, your mind is your own and its health is entirely dependent up to you. And so that means that you have a responsibility to make your mind as healthy as possible. And if you squander that responsibility over some nonsense, well, what can you do?
Right.
I raised the question. So like, how before they even get to the whole disorder and depression aspect of it, how do we start off with like training for good mental health in the first place? Similar how you would start like working out for like good physical health. How would you start off good mental health in per se?
I mean, I feel like just having emotional awareness is a good way to start having good mental health. I mean, I feel like when you get to the point where you start ignoring the way you feel on a regular basis, that's when you actually feel some type of way and you don't even know how to address that or how to identify that, know how to define the emotion that you are feeling. That's when we get into the habit of, not accepting that emotion or rejecting the emotion. That's when we get into the habit of thinking that we feel one way when we actually feel another way. So I feel like the first thing you want to do is just become good at identifying emotions and being aware of your own emotions internally. And it's just my personal opinion.
Well, me, I believe there's no study habit for mental health. I was reading the Bhagavad Gita today, and I was reading some more of the ISIS thesis. And within it, they both make very similar points, as in everyone comes to this realm to experience trauma, because as you're in this human shell, you're going to experience trauma. And to deal with this trauma means you have to do the chakra work. However you could do your chakra work, whatever works for you, as long as you do your chakra work and raise your kundalini and gain awareness so you can get up out of this shell, so you can be aware. Everyone's gonna have trauma. It don't matter how rich you are. I mean, you still seen a black person get killed. And that's one thing that's hurt you. That's trauma. So you got to deal with that trauma. Everyone got trauma. People think people that are rich don't have trauma and issues. Are you kidding me? Why you think, I forgot, I think she was part of the Rockefeller family. Shawty left her family and went with Jay Electronica a few years ago. Shawty dipped. She was a billionaire. Shawty, she was like, I can't take this no more. Walking around, you see your family over there eating babies and shit, motherfucker. I go crazy too. Motherfuckers doing crazy stuff. They got trauma. Everyone got trauma. You got to deal with your trauma. Mental health is not necessarily, it might not cause an issue, but to practice it is to be aware, like you said, of your emotions. You have to understand it. But I think trauma is going to come regardless. It might not come younger. It might come later. It might come here, then. But the idea is you need to deal with your trauma in a healthy way that helps you become aware and understand it. Not so you can suppress it, but so you can utilize it and understand it whenever it shows itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like if you ever watched the movie The Shining and or the sequel to it, Doctor Sleep, which came out last year. The Shining is it's basically consciousness. It's the dark matter think tank. Kids are born with this. People are born with the Shining. It's like how they can. It's like telepathy almost. You could pick up on someone else shining if they have it. It's like when you sense someone with good energy. You know what I'm saying? I've been at work a few times and people would just be like, you got some good energy now. Like, I appreciate you too. And it would just be a feeling. And so in The Shining, there are these creatures that feed off of the kids shining, which is representative of two things. Which is representative of how them crazy people in Hollywood and the rich people be feeding off the kids adrenochrome, but that's a whole different story. But it also shows us how they are that your lower self will feed off of your own power, your own consciousness, your own ability to manifest. That's why I say your words have power. For example, your lower self is going to, for example, like you said, man, I can't do that. That's your lower self saying, bet he can't do it. You over there, you be like, I can't do it, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I think, man, I done lost my train of thought. I was going in.
Talking about how words, how you said if you say you can't do something, your mind yourself gonna go and be like, oh, for real, let's go, something like
Right,
that.
right. And so again, like that plays so deeply into trauma as well, because if you telling yourself you can't heal from this trauma and you're not, because of course the words have power, but then behind the word is an action. So if you already spoke it, so you're putting it out there, then you need to write it down as part of the action. Then you do it, and you will manifest it. You will create that reality. As I said before, your mental health, you might have this issue to the severity, and that's okay, because there's so much BS going on. Everyone got some trauma, but to understand that, hey, you have the power to do this is a topic. It's so touchy because it's almost as if people who go through it don't want to hear that, right? Because if you're sad, it's like when people get sad, they listen to more sad music, right?
Yeah.
So you're feeding the sadness because you're like, this hurt feels so bad. Let me listen to something that's gonna make me feel even worse. That's That's like setting yourself on fire, saying, "Damn shit, burn. Let me add some more gasoline on this motherfucker." Ooh, like what the hell wrong with you?
It's
Like,
like
you know what I'm saying?
that's like when you're feeling those certain like sadness, you're in a vulnerable state of mind. And I believe for some people it's relieving to know it's not just you. So like if you say you're
Yeah.
on fire and you gotta burn, and you hear about your friend that got burned and a friend that got burned, like, oh, it's not just me. So it makes you feel better about getting burned instead of dealing with the fact that you just got burned. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that doesn't make it healthy.
Yeah,
By
it's not at all.
right,
But
because that's not dealing with it. That's acknowledging it. So
exactly.
so then what you're doing, everything you're doing after that means you're not benefiting yourself in any way possible. Because for you to listen to sad music and to hear, yo, okay, he got sad music, he feeling the same way. That means you're acknowledging you're not alone. You're not the only one going through it. So for you to continue to surround yourself about people who going through it rather than people who overcame it, you're not helping yourself. It's like when people say, it's like trying to talk smart to dumb people. You the dummy, because if they dumb, they're not gonna get it, right? It's it's like a dead fight, dead weight.
Like that's why it all seems to like controlling your thoughts. Because one way or another, we said previous times how your mind, your subconscious mind, is very subjective to be
Hmm.
altered based off what you hear and say. So
Right.
like
We're
if you're
rhythm.
having those negative thoughts about yourself, like I hate this, I hate that, I hate me, I hate you, stuff like that,
Right.
your brain is picking up on those little tendencies until it becomes a habit. Habit becomes character, emotions, feeling, actions, thoughts, and just a downward spiral. You know what I'm saying?
It's like the episode me and you did, Rod. We talked about ancestral activation and how they do. If you break down the word universe, it's universe. Uni means one, verse is essentially a song. So, and if we're in the universe, that means it makes us rhythm. So we are the sound of the universe. So we are music. This is why you go to Africa, them motherfuckers dancing all day, because that's a form of magic, right? We need to go back to being magicians and using our magic, right? Music is a form of meditation in itself. Dancing is meditation. People think meditation is just going on and sitting down. No, dancing is just as powerful in meditation. That's why dancing was so important to hip hop. It made it unique. But on that note, I think we covered a lot of gems, and
Yeah.
I think we're definitely gonna get ready to close out and wrap this one up. So you know what the deal is, the outro. But before we do the outro, make sure y'all go follow us on IG at Fresh Pharaoh Entertainment. Subscribe to the YouTube. Y'all
Also
better
available
subscribe.
on platforms. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
all platforms, rate, all that good stuff. Show the team support.
And
We do this.
make sure you all follow our personal Instagrams as well. I think all of our Instagrams are the same. Donnie Ascendant, Rock the Guy, Horse the Pharaoh. Because
Yes.
we're gonna be posting reminders about episode drops. Every now and then we just post a little tidbit, little gems on y'all. So stay up to date, stay posted, tap in.
Also, so y'all free to suggest ideas for no episodes. We do this for the people. So,
Yeah.
always looking for ideas and stuff.
It's not that we ain't got episodes, but we like to be interactive. So when y'all give episodes, it feel like we with y'all. So don't be scared, because we'll talk about literally anything and then have you going like, "Well, I ain't never think about it like that." Yep. Yep. Also, y'all check out my product. Y'all can find it in my bio. Horus is Sacred Silver. You dig? It's an immune boosting supplement. You dig? I got a new product coming out that I'm gonna launch soon. Set Cyan Copper, right?
Come up with a slogan. It helps it sell.
I don't want a slogan. It's just Set Cyan Copper. The name
Hold it
sells.
up. Aaron's colloquial silver. Go ahead.
Yeah. But you know the deal. We're gonna go ahead and hit up with the outro. Y'all know the deal.
All right, boys. From Men's to Kings.
From kings to guys.
We are Fresh Pharaoh Entertainment. Peace.
And we out.